Empty Birds in part 3, and I had just finished part 4, which is nothing but silences and letters taken by chance operations from Thoreau, so that 12 minutes will pass in that without my doing anything or saying anything. I also reduced the number of slides of Thoreau's drawings that would appear, so that they would be, in my mind, they would say in a 2.5-hour period you have just, say, 5 images, and that they would be a chance-determined part of half an hour, and they would fade in like a vision, and would stay a chance-determined length of time and then disappear. And then there would be nothing, and maybe nothing that I was providing, at least, to see or to hear, and then maybe a few letters and so on. I thought it was very appropriate to a Buddhist situation. One of the things in the history of Buddhism is the coming of the Bodhidharma out of India into China. And he sat for 10 years, the story goes, facing a wall. And someone came at one point and cut off one of his ears, and that didn't disturb him. So, thinking of that, and the fact that the Bodhidharma's back was to the people, and that he was looking at the wall, which let us say they were looking at, and if I was performing and the images were on the wall, that I should face the wall rather than the people, and that the sound anyway was coming through loudspeakers. So I sat for the first time with my back to the audience, and there were these long periods of inactivity and nothing to do. And all these people who were actually there, many of them studying meditation and doing exactly that, couldn't take it. And such an uproar began that my friends were alarmed, and they were afraid that I would be hurt. And there were people throwing things. And I simply continued, and for the full period of 2.5 hours. At the end, I turned around and gave an informal talk, as I'm giving now, but in a form of dialogue. And that is being, those remarks which were taped are being published shortly as a resume of that period. The Tibetan Rinpoche, which means most precious jewel, who heads that school, was not at the performance, and but up in the mountains. And I had met him with some other people the evening before, and they wanted me to have to see him alone for half an hour the next day, and I did. I had been told by some friends, Allen Ginsberg was there, and Anne Waldman, and some other poets. I had been told that I had succeeded in bringing the devils in among the Buddhas, and that was what they wanted to have happen, you know. And that is to say, the Buddhas wanted that to happen. But I said, well, actually, I would have been happier just with the Buddhas. I didn't want to bring the devils in. When I went to see the Rinpoche the next day, I had to wait about 20 minutes. And in the room where I was waiting, there were 10 signs. And I asked what they were, and was told that they were the 10 auspicious signs. And my response to that was, well, where are the devils? If there's this desire for auspiciousness. And so when I got to speak with the Rinpoche, I said, I told him about what had happened the previous evening. He said, yes, he had heard. And I told him about a remark of Suzuki's that I had studied with him for 3 years, and that Suzuki had once said, and I had never understood what he meant. He had said, there seems to be a tendency toward the good. And I never knew whether he meant that in creation in general, there is a tendency toward the good, or whether he meant that the previous person who had spoken indicated that in his mind there was a tendency toward the good. I had no idea. And then I told him also about these 10 auspicious signs and why were they there if the devil should be in among the Buddhas and so forth. And so he said that those 10 auspicious signs were for the people of little understanding. And that finally there is no difference between good and evil. And that this is what we must move in our minds toward. It reminded me of thing that happened with Suzuki. I wasn't present, but it was in Hawaii, and the philosophers had a congress. And one had given a lecture, and another philosopher during the intermission asked Suzuki what he thought of it, and he said, it's very good, but in Zen, the most important thing is life. And the next day, another man gave a lecture, and the same man asked Suzuki what he thought of it, and he said it was also very good. But he said the important thing in Zen is death. And then this philosopher was very upset, and he said, how can you say life one day and death the next? And Suzuki said, well, in Zen, there isn't much difference. I still confess that I would have rather had the general enjoyment, and for sure the enjoyment of it together with the people. Otherwise I wouldn't really have done it. I didn't do it with the intention of producing an uproar.